The next topic is importance of mother tongue. So after telling his students that he was leaving the next day because of an order from Berlin which had told the schools of Alsace and Lorraine to teach German in place of French. He talked about the importance of one's mother tongue or one's native language. So according to Himmel, or what he thinks about his language, that is French, is he thinks that it is the most beautiful language in the world. So he says, Himmel then talked about the French language. Okay, he called it the most beautiful, the clearest and the most logical language in the world. According to Himmel, his language or French is the most beautiful, the clearest and the logical language in the world. So in a way he is showing a language chauvinism here. In the same way the Germans were showing by forcing the French people to learn German. But the difference between the two is the Germans want to show their dominance over the subjugated people of France, whereas here M. Himmel is showing that language chauvinism, or he is a bit chauvinistic about his language because he is a language teacher, and it becomes his moral obligation to safeguard and protect his own language. Okay, and maybe he is also showing some professionalism. Okay, and maybe also he is also feeling very close towards his nation. That indicates that he is also very patriotic. And as a language teacher, it is his duty to protect the language and safeguard the identity of his nation. Okay, so he wanted the people of France to treasure their language. So that is what I said. And he reminded his students as well as the villagers who have gathered in his classroom that it is important for them to consider their language as a treasure, a precious thing. Okay? So he himself as a language teacher had realized that only after knowing that now he won't be able to teach his own language in the schools of Alsace. Okay? So it is again habitual with everyone that whenever we have something in our hand, we fail to understand its worth. We fail to give it the due respect. In the same way, when they had the time and the opportunity to learn their language and teach their language, nobody realized the importance of their language. They never considered the French lesson as a treasure. But now, Himmel realized the importance of learning their language and safeguarding their language. So because of that, he told his students and the villagers that everybody has the moral obligation and the duty to protect, safeguard their language and consider it as a national asset or national treasure. So that implies also to us, the Tibetans. There are many people who say that our language is very important because it is one of the identities of our being Tibetan citizens. Okay, so how does he say that? According to him, whenever the people of a particular nation are enslaved, as long as they are attached to their language, it is as if they have the key to the prison. So he uses here a metaphor. Okay, the metaphor is the language has been compared to a key, and the people who are enslaved, dominated, or subjugated, or occupied are compared to a lock to the prison. Okay? So according to him, as long as one has its own language, if people know the language, then it is like having the key to that lock to the prison in which the people are jailed or imprisoned, meaning they can escape from subjugation and be liberated. So what does he mean by here is language links culture and society, which in turn unite people, and eventually the people are liberated from the political subjugation of other nation. Okay? So that is the importance of a language. As I said, it is a link between the culture and the society, and this unites the people, and when people are united, then they will be able to liberate themselves from foreign political subjugation. So that is why he says it is very important for them to safeguard the French language and keep their identity as a separate nation, as separate people from Persia or Germany or the Germans. Okay, so if we move on to the next topic, it is the title of the story itself, the last lesson, Hamel's last lesson in the school of Alsace. Okay, so what he did that day is he only had one day in hand. So he wanted to make the maximum use of that period because he realized that he had been very negligent in his profession. Now he realized the importance of himself as a language teacher in his own school as well as for the nation. So M. Hamel opened a grammar book and taught them their lesson. So the first lesson that he taught in the school that day, in his class that day, was grammar. He started his lesson with grammar. He taught the French grammar that day. Okay. And Franz was amazed to see how well he understood everything. So one thing that Franz realized that particular day, he was understanding everything so well, which he had never experienced in the past. So why do you think that little Franz was understanding everything so well that day? What do you think is the magic behind it? Any idea? So Franz is going to talk about that in the text. Franz thought that probably he never paid much attention in the class. So that is the magic, which little Franz realized. He was understanding everything so well on that particular day because the first magic is that on that particular day he was paying full attention. He was very attentive to the details of everything. So because of that, now he is able to understand everything so clearly. That is what happens in our life usually. In the class, we don't pay much attention. Our attention is on many other things. We are physically present in the classroom, but mentally we are roaming elsewhere with others. And so because of that, we don't learn, we don't learn anything because we don't understand anything as our attention is diverted. So that is what little Franz realized that day. Okay? And he now understood everything so well. And there is another magic to that understanding of young boy Franz. And what is the other magic? It is on the part of the teacher. This is on the part of the student, and the other magic is on the part of the teacher. And that M. Hamel had never explained everything with so much patience. Okay, so that is what is required from the teacher. Okay, what is required from the students is attention. He has to be attentive. And what is required from the part of the teacher is that the teacher should have lots of patience. Okay, and on that particular day, Hamel was very patient and was explaining everything with much patience, and he was not losing his temper whenever a student showed some misbehavior, or some students asked him questions. He did not lose his temper. He explained everything very patiently, kindly, and spoke very gently. So because of these two magic, Franz was able to understand everything. After that, they had a lesson in writing. Okay, so after the grammar lesson, Hamel had planned a lesson in writing. As I said, now he wanted to make the maximum use of that time period that he had at that time. Okay, on that particular day, I mean. Okay, so Hamel had brought new copies for them that day. Okay, so when he started teaching writing as a gift, maybe last parting gift for his students, he had brought new copies or new notebooks. And how did the new notebooks look? France, Alsace, France, Alsace. These were written, beautifully written on the copies. Okay, and to this young boy, Franz, what did he feel? How did he find the notebooks? He felt that here was an air of patriotism in the class. Okay, he felt very patriotic even at looking at the notebooks that were brought by his teacher, on which France, Alsace were written. All this showed him the strong respect and love for his nation and the district. The notebooks were like flags of France that were floating all around. So this is how the notebooks looked to him. He felt as if the notebooks were like the flags of France, national flags of France that were floating in the air, showing the sense of patriotism, extreme love for his nation. Okay, then as the lesson was going, he also heard the coos, or the sounds of the pigeons who were on the rooftop. As he heard the sound, what did he think? The coo sound of the pigeons could be heard in the class, and Franz wondered that would the Persians force the pigeons also to change their language and coo in German. So this is a bit of, you can say, the writer has used a hyperbole. Hyperbole means exaggeration. We know that animals, birds and animals do not speak human language. But here what Franz felt is this question that the Germans are forcing every citizen of France to learn German and speak in German. And this is a bit not just hyperbole, ironical also. He says, will they be able to force the birds to speak in German, coo in German? And he is saying that is quite impossible. Okay? So what the writer is implying here is the choice of language should be left to the people. Nobody can actually force anyone to choose their own language. It should be left with the people themselves. Okay? But the Germans are doing this just to show their dominance over the people of France. They are trying to prove their superiority over the French by making them speak in their own language. Their own means German language. Okay? So that they can not only politically dominate the nation, but they can also dominate the individuals, their culture, their identity. They want dominance over everything: culture, language, identity, not just the land. That is what the Germans want to do. And France was thinking about that. Will they be able to dominate everything? Will they be able to make the French people completely change their culture, completely change their language, completely change their identity? And history itself is a proof that it is very difficult for any nation to do such a thing. Because as I said, the choice of a language, the choice of one's identity strongly lies with the people themselves. And if the people do not choose to become something else, then it becomes very difficult for anybody to make that change. Okay? So from that point of view, this part is very important. Okay? So this is what I have said here. The writer wants to say that language comes naturally to a being and it cannot be forced upon anyone, be it the pigeons or the French people. As I explained, language is a natural thing that comes naturally with the people, and it becomes very difficult for anyone to force that on others if the others do not have the will to learn it. So that particular day, everyone was immersed in their work. So everyone in the classroom, starting from Hemel, the teacher, to the students, to the village people at the back, everyone was immersed in their work. Because we said they have realized the importance of learning their own language. They have realized the importance of using the present, using what we have in our hand and not delaying, putting it off or procrastinating that thing. They have learned that. So because of that, everyone was immersed in their work. Again, here he has given the examples of the little children who were sitting in front of the class. Even the little children sitting in the class were tracing their fish books as if that was French. Again, this might be a hyperbole. Okay, so the little children maybe who have come with the village people were sitting in the front and they were tracing their fish book. Fish book here means the coloring books. Young children are given big books with the outlines in which they are made to color so that they can develop their motor skills. Okay? So they have also come with their color books and they were coloring their books with so much attention that it looked as if they were also learning the language, learning their language. Or maybe he is saying the young children were also doing their work with so much attention and seriousness, as if they were learning their own language. As if means now the learning of their language, French, has become very, very important for everyone. Not just a teacher and a student, but everyone, from the village people to the young children. Okay? Okay, the last topic is the final goodbye. Now the time was nearing to the end of the session, school. So because of that, now everyone is getting ready to say their goodbyes. All this while, while all these activities were going on, Hemel sat motionless in his chair. He was sitting on his chair and he was thinking. He was motionless. Maybe he was trying to look at the whole atmosphere and imprint all the scene in his thought or mind, so that in the future he can think about what it looked like on that particular day. Franz thought that M. Hemel wanted to imprint this classroom scene in his mind. Okay, so this is what Franz thought when Hemel sat motionless. Okay, or you can say Franz read Hemel's thought, and Hemel was trying to put all the scene each and every people present in the classroom in his mind, so that in the future he can recollect them and cherish them as being the last class in Alsace where he had taught for 40 years and contributed to his school as well as his nation. Okay, for 40 years he had given his faithful service to the school, and now his sister was packing their stuff. So this is important again. Sometimes questions come in the exam asking you to write Hemmel's contribution to the school as well as the nation. So this is what you need to write. For 40 years he had given his faithful service to the school and taught the native language, the mother tongue, and in that in turn contributed to safeguarding and upkeeping of their national identity. But now after 40 years his sister was packing their stuff because they need to leave the next day. All this must have been really heartbreaking for him. So thinking about the 40 long years service in the school and now his sister packing his things, all this might have been very heartbreaking, sad, miserable for Hemel. So this is what little Franz thought about. Finally, they had a lesson in history. As I said, he wanted to make the maximum use of that time, and so he took the last lesson in history. Everybody became emotional towards the end. Some even started to cry. So when he started teaching his last subject, that is history, and when he was explaining about their own nation and the district, everybody became very emotional, sad, and some of them even started crying. Finally, as the church clock struck 12, Hemel stood up. Okay, so finally the church clock, the clock on the church struck 12, indicating that it was end of his lesson or end of his class. So now he stood up, and it was evident that he had become emotional too. Okay, so as the clock on the church indicated that it was the end of his lesson, he also became very emotional. And maybe even the scene in the classroom where people, some of the people were crying, some of his students were crying, made him very emotional. At the same moment, the sound of the trumpets played by the Persian soldiers who were returning from the drill was heard. Okay, so this is again ironical. As soon as the clock struck 12, ending his class, they could even hear the trumpet played by the Persian soldiers who were returning from their exercise. Okay, again this is ironical in the sense it indicated that the freedom of France has ended, and now begins the total domination by the Germans. Hemel's face became dull and colorless as the time had come for the class to get over. Now it is time for him to dismiss the class. So before he dismissed the class, what did he do? He has to say the final goodbye to his students as well as the villagers who have gathered. Okay, so he tried to say something but choked. Again, this is something all of us, common to all of us. When we are emotional, when we are sad, when we are gripped by strong feelings, it becomes very difficult for us to speak. Words do not come to our tongues. Our throats get choked, okay, stuck. So like that, he also felt the same. He wanted to say something to his class, but he could not say anything. He choked. Okay. Then he turned to the blackboard and wrote as large as he could. This is also important. He wrote the word as large as he could. Okay. Writing is as large as he could also indicate his sense of patriotism. His love for the nation is as big as he has written the word. What did he write? Vive la France. Vive la France. Again, in the question, usually you are asked to write what France wrote on the blackboard on that day. This is what you have to write. Vive la France. But I have seen many students writing long live France. That is the translation into English. It translates to long live France in English. What you should write is Vive la France. Okay? And it means long live France. He then dismissed the class and how did he dismiss the class? By signaling them. Okay? He gave a signal with his hands, dismissing the class, because he could not say any word. He choked on the words. The words were not coming to his tongue. So because of that, he dismissed the class by giving them a signal. Okay? So Vive la France means long live France. What did Hamel write on the blackboard? If this question comes, you should say he wrote Vive la France. And another question can come. What does Vive la France mean? Vive la France means long live France. So this is how you answer. Okay? And this is the end of this beautiful, powerful, and very relevant to our life chapter. And before you go away, go through these questions, try to answer them. You can look back to the video and find the answers to these questions so that it will give you a practice and recapitulate what you have learned. Thank you.